her story. Yeah, she shopped Harry Potter around to pretty much every publisher there in England, and they all turned her down. And she finally ended up with this, shall I say, small publishing company who looked at it and said, yeah, sure, we can do this. And oftentimes, there are people who say, oh, and they go, oh, look, we should have done this. All of these other publishers are going, we should have done this because look at the boatload of money. But the answer is that the reason those publishers that she went to and shopped around for turned her down was because in their minds, this is not something we do. This is not the kind of story we would publish. And that's why they gave her the pass. And sure enough, some other little publisher gets it, and look what happened. And the whole thing sort of blew up in everybody else's face. And it's like, dang, maybe we should have gone after it. The idea of $1. And you look at half of the rock and roll bands that were, that came out in the 60s and 70s and so on. They all had that same story. They went to one, they shopped around every record label, and somebody says, nah, we don't want that. And then some little small producer somewhere says, you know what? These guys got talent. We can do something with it. And next thing you know, there's the Beatles. And almost every industry has those kinds of stories where some little guy somewhere has some product, be it music or a book or whatever, and somebody says, yeah, we can do something with that. And that has been, oftentimes the case with me. I will help somebody, and all of a sudden, technology or that story or whatever becomes a relatively, well-known book or something of that nature, or a song or something. But yet my name doesn't get associated with it because I only gave them, they came to me and it only took me an hour to do that for the project that they needed done, that solidified that product for them. So yeah,
well,
I got my hour's worth of pay out of it, and they made a boatload of money.
Well, how do they know how much to pay you for? Do you set a timer, or how do you gauge your time? Because people that are listening to us are going to know, well, okay, so they apparently edit books. I don't want to do that. But let's say they want to, write music. Maybe they're a guitarist and they want to get paid for their song. And somebody says, okay, write me a jingle, and I need an infomercial for 1 minute into my podcast, and I'm not a musician. So how would they pay them? How do they pay you? Let's get into how do they make money at home?
Well, I have an hourly rate, which varies sometimes from project to project. In other words, somebody wants me to go through and edit a script because they're trying to sell a movie. There's oftentimes a different hourly rate for that because, again, writing for that, you have to write a different format. Same thing for books. Poetry is also a little bit different because it's a different type of writing. Again, you're talking, what's my time worth is really what it comes down to. And oftentimes it's sort of like I'm figuring out, okay, what's my light bill this month? And how much of that electric bill is really pretty much on me? So like any other business, I have to have a good idea of what I'm paying out, and that's going to dictate how much I need to charge, simply put. So oftentimes, and then it's also, your experience. You're now paying, the more you've learned to do things, you picked up things along the way, your time becomes more valuable. The fact that I can do something in 15 minutes that other people will take an hour to an hour and a half to do, and I'm willing to bill in that quarter of an hour, that oftentimes keeps a customer rather than chasing them off. Because some people will, just charge a flat hourly rate. So if they get something done in 10 minutes, they're charging that full hourly rate. And if their clients ever find out, to them, they sort of feel like they're being cheated. Well, unless you spell that out up front, yeah, my work is, so much an hour, and if I get something done in 10 minutes or, in an hour, you're going to pay the same rate. So I've learned to bill quarterly hours, just because that's the way I work. In other words, I find and get things done quickly. And my customers are happy. And for that reason, I get a level of work that is comfortable for me, and it's also comfortable for my clients.
So what can you do in 15 minutes for $12.50? Is it more that you do an hour, like that 1, 2 or 3 or 9 pages? I just grabbed a file to see what you could do, and you did a good job, folks. I mean, he did the basics because there was, and I didn't even know what I gave him, so I was shocked. But, checking the way that it's set up, and it depended on what I was going to use it for. But I think it just came off of some website template or something, and I just downloaded it into my computer. That was whatever it was on. I didn't pay any attention. But, you knew enough about the things in writing that most people don't pay attention to, especially in today's themes, and especially in WordPress. Nowadays we have blocks, and we, on our websites we do widgets, and there's talk, folks, that using templates, but now they're getting us away from what we used to do and just making it so easy. People are using, they say, well, I don't know what you know, and so they'd rather go pay and buy a simple little monthly Wix or some simple thing like that, so they can just cut and paste it over. They don't do what we did as editorial anymore, or working, but I've got a lot of different companies. It depends on what you need and the people. So let's say that they just want to do a simple domain. Now you've got a company, but you're known for checking out software for people as well, and you found some ways to just the cheaper software. And I guess that's what we ought to make some videos about, is our podcast, you and I, is grow a group of people that we can trust. LinkedIn is a funny thing. You can meet people all day there, and they're all doing basically the same thing, and they're all looking for other people they can make money with and outsource or grow if they can't do it. But, they're not Ogilvy or Disney or, any of the big groups, Oracles, or, any of the big companies. These are just individuals that may represent another company. But let's say you and I start looking at software, and if you recommend it, you're going to just bill them out. Okay, well, I'll bill you. I don't know if we should just tell them a minimum. What should people do at home? It's up to them. If they say, well, I work for, let's say, $35 an hour because I'm at home and I'm right out of school. Otherwise, I have to work directly for GoDaddy. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? You can work directly for a big company at home now, or you can just start working for yourself. But I want to grow some entrepreneurs at home that say, okay, TJ, I heard you and David talking, and I've got something I'd like to write or should write, and then can you help me get it formatted? Me or David or both of us together making a project. But then neither one of us do graphic design, so we'll have to hire a graphic designer and let you know what that's going to cost, unless you can load it yourself direct, and that gets a little complicated even for me, because sometimes my book covers fit and sometimes they don't, David, and that's when you start getting into pixel counting and size. So we ought to come up with some kind of study or survey, but we don't know, right? Of software we can put out there, or either write it or build it and figure out what people need. You work with musicians, I work with musicians. Now, a lot of people are coming to me now wanting me to help them edit what they've already done, or they've taken their phones out, but they don't know how to edit properly, or they want to put their business information inside their infomercial, things like that. So there's all kind of things we could do, but we want people to do it for themselves. So you think we should do Podcast 101 or help them learn their domain, or we can help them get their blogs going if they have the time. Nowadays, people have more time at home. I don't know if you want to talk about blogging versus podcasting versus Vimeo or YouTube, but I see them doing a little bit of everything. I don't know. I'll let you talk for a minute.
Again, it comes down to what somebody wants to do. I mean, I typically, for the way back when I took radio and television production, there was a joke that was often heard and used where somebody says, yeah, I have a face for radio. And what that meant is that they didn't have a very pretty face, but they had an excellent speaking voice. And so, therefore, you, buddy, should stay, in radio as opposed to getting yourself in front of a camera. Because some people just aren't as photogenic as others, and so there's something to be said for that as well. And this is oftentimes when you look at newscasters and reporters, typically we use that phrase, the beautiful people. And yeah, there's a certain amount of that goes on in television broadcasting and radio as well. And as they say in radio, you don't have to have a pretty face. You just have to have a pretty voice. So yeah, that was always the running joke whenever we'd run into somebody else in the industry. Oh yeah, you've got a face for radio.
Yeah.
So here again, I'm more camera shy than anything else. I don't mind speaking, on the radio necessarily, because I've been told, yeah, you've got a fairly good voice. And there again, in doing a blog, you have to be kind of an actor. You have to kind of know where and when to raise the pitch in your voice or lower the pitch in your voice to bring certain accents, because you're still having to make it entertaining. And if you just don't have an entertaining voice and you can't talk and you can't tell the story, you might, blogging or, might not be for you. So here again, and there again, the more you practice it and you become better at it, the less time you have to spend editing, so on. You start cutting your production costs. That's one of the other things that goes into my pricing, is how much production time I have to spend on doing any given product, whether that project is editing somebody's story or poetry, or the time I'm spending looking for somebody else to maybe do just that, the graphics, or to do the artwork. Here again, that becomes part of my price to somebody in doing a project. The other thing that I would tell people also, if you're going to be a writer, you have to negotiate a price with that book publisher when you get to that point. And so how do I know what my, what kind of price should I go after in my book? And the answer is, you say to yourself, okay, I think my time is worth $30 an hour. So you basically keep a time card of, okay, I wrote for 3 hours today, so that would be $90 of it. I wrote 4 hours yesterday, and how many hours every day, and you keep track of it just like you would a time card. And then you multiply that at the end when you've got that story done, and you say, okay, I spent $2,800 on writing my story as far as my time was concerned. So that becomes important to then negotiate a price with a book publisher, because a book publisher wants to do everything they can to lowball that writer, because they're in the job of making money. That's their business. They just happen to do it by printing books. So, yeah, they're looking to cut their overhead as much as possible, just as anybody would, and just so that they can also turn around and get the biggest part of the profit that they can. That's the name of the game, making money.
Well, the companies that are calling, if they know you've got a book or you're interested, that most of them are going to be working for companies, and that whether they're doing websites or selling things, or if you're interested in a book or writing your own book, you're going to start getting calls, especially in today's algorithms and the way they're tracking you from your cell phones, watching and getting up what you're going to. It's getting to be more and more like China. Of course, China's already got it set where if you lay your phone down, they want to know how much time you're not using your phone. They literally are doing this, folks, in China, where you are judged now by your credit scores on how much time you're spending on the phone, how much you're keeping it uploaded, your battery up. They can tell everything, where you go, what you do with your time, as to what credit you're going to get. And now, due to, I guess, the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, whether good or bad, that's the jury's out for the entire world till we see down the road because they, were